between France and Belgium has reportedly been closed now, quite a significant event. Do you think that such security measures can help prevent similar attacks?
Well, they're necessary but not sufficient. In fact, the Schengen arrangements should have been suspended completely after the equally foul atrocity in Paris just a few months ago. They are necessary, but they are not sufficient. It's clear that these people are well organized. Their murderous intent is uncheckable. They are a death cult. They care nothing about giving their own lives to take many of ours. So clearly Schengen, suspension, tighter border controls and so on are necessary, but they are not sufficient.
Now, Mr. Galloway, we're hearing reports that Belgian intelligence already had information that terrorist attacks were being planned. What do you make of that?
Well, I think we can almost always say that terrorist attacks are being planned, and not just in Brussels. These people appear to be in very significant numbers. These attacks in Paris and Brussels were not lone wolf attacks of deranged, swivel-eyed madmen. These are people with military capability, and they appear to exist in all countries in significant numbers. And we're just not getting to grips with that. And worse than that, when Russia joined seriously the war in Syria to try and extirpate at least the base of this ISIS Al-Qaeda phenomenon, they were subject to merciless criticism, threats of sanctions and so on by the very Western countries that are shedding, in some cases, crocodile tears today. These presidents and prime ministers who appear shocked that such a thing can happen again are the very people who didn't support Russia, indeed attacked Russia for trying to, at least on this particular battlefield in Syria, actually destroy these people.
And of course, Mr. Galloway, these tragic events today, they're not the only attacks. This month earlier we saw attacks in Ankara as well, and Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan warned that Europe, and specifically Brussels, could become the target of such attacks. Before we come back to you, let's just take a listen to his comments.
There is no reason why the bomb that exploded in Ankara cannot explode in Brussels or in any other European city.
What do you make of the Turkish president's words, Mr. Galloway?
Well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that it was not an informed prophecy, but Erdogan and his regime have played a very significant part in begetting ISIS, in facilitating it, arming it, treating its wounded, buying its stolen goods. And of course, at the very same time as these mass murders in Ankara have been taking place, Erdogan himself has been murdering Kurdish people in his own country and in Syria in very, very much larger numbers.
Mr. Galloway, in light of these recent attacks, in today's attacks in Brussels, we've seen security heightened across Europe, at Frankfurt Airport, for instance, and also Cologne Airport. Can you tell us more about the situation in Europe at the moment?
Well, I think that Europe will go into lockdown because it's very unlikely that this incident will be the last of its kind. And we here in Britain are extremely worried that we are in the firing line. We're not, of course, in the Schengen, and we have clear water between us and the European mainland. But our problem is there nonetheless, and particularly in London, particularly where I'm sitting now in central London. I hope that our intelligence and our police are wholly prepared for the challenges that probably lie ahead. And if they emerge, we have to shoot these people dead. There is no room for liberalism in this. If someone comes to harm innocent people in London, whatever their cause, they must be shot down dead. But that will not solve the problem. That too is necessary but not sufficient. You know, we actually created this phenomenon in the 1980s in Afghanistan, when on the principle of my enemy's enemy is my friend, we built up this fanatic extremism, just like Dr. Frankenstein built up his monster, only for it to quickly break out of control. That's what's happened. I told Mrs. Thatcher on the eve of the fall of Kabul in the 1980s, you have opened the gates for the barbarians, and a long dark night will now descend. I never said truer words.
And Mr. Galloway, in terms of the broader EU policy on the migrant crisis, these attacks obviously come on the back of that deal between the EU and Turkey in terms of the funding and the exchange of asylum seekers between the camps. What impact will this have on any future such deals and indeed on the migrant crisis in Europe at the moment?
Well, it's not having any impact at all. The sea of misery still streams our way. And that's not, I think, in the short term going to change. It was a very sordid deal, you know. Erdogan, who did so much to create this refugee crisis, accepts large amounts of European money to try, we'll see if he succeeds, in staunching the flow. And in exchange, he gets accelerated talks on Turkey's entry into the European Union. So it's a very good deal, but only for Erdogan.
Mr. Galloway, thanks so much for joining us here on RT International. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Welcome.